Thank you for joining me. I mean, this just does in fact move the story on a bit, doesn't it? It makes Andrew even less reliable and honest, I think, than we thought he might have been after that terrible interview.
I think the problem with Andrew is he doesn't remember what he said. And I personally feel it's to do with this arrogance of I am always right. So what happens if I get a date a few months wrong? I mean, all the way down the line, he's been a bit inaccurate with dates. I mean, ages and ages ago, his private secretary said he'd actually met Epstein in 1999 before he was introduced to him supposedly by Ghislaine Maxwell. So I think that I think that Andrew he should have prepped for that interview, shouldn't he? And made sure he got everything right. I think his arrogance is such that he just doesn't think it matters if he gets a few dates wrong. But this is a really serious things that have been thrown at him, and it does matter because now we think, well as everything else, he doesn't even know where he was when.
And also, I mean, the phrase that we've all been treated to here, this, we'll play more soon. I mean, I cannot imagine sending that to a friend of mine, an adult friend of mine, unless it were utterly kind of sordid in implication. We'll play more, yuck. I mean, they didn't play tennis together, did they? They didn't play cricket. What the heck playing were they doing?
Well, I suppose he meant we'll sort of have some fun, but it's not a sort of thing adults, an adult really says to another. It's sort of thing you might say when you're teenagers to your girlfriend. Well, let's play more. Let's have some fun. Let's do something naughty.
Exactly.
But you're quite right. No, it's not a very sophisticated way of said. And also, wow, how stupid to put something like that in an email.
And also, he was already known to be a convicted paedophile, Epstein, at that point. It's not as if it was before that and he didn't realise and he didn't know. He knew only too well by the time he sent that message. So imagine sending that kind of message to a convicted paedophile. We'll play more soon. That just is somehow it seems to me an incredibly tarnishing thing to have said. Do you not think so?
I do, and I think Andrew just walks from one enormous mire into an even bigger one. And it's not just him that he's heaping ridicule on, it's his family, it's the royal family. I know he's not a working member of the royal family and never ever will be, but it's still embarrassing for them. And he's really a bit of a loose cannon because he's liable to say absolutely anything or indeed forget what he said, which must be a worry because if I know that Charles is being very loyal to his brother, despite what the newspapers say. He is being loyal to his brother, but there is a limit. And I should think he would just quite like to stuff a large handkerchief in Andrew's mouth and tell him to shut up.
But it's not. It doesn't seem to be happening, does it? And this is in the same week that Princess Beatrice gave birth to a little baby girl, and I think people might well have been feeling very fondly and well disposed towards her and sending her good wishes, and then there's some other kind of scandalous revelation about her father. This seems to happen with absolutely unerring regularity, doesn't it? That there's just more to mine in this seam. Is there anything else that can be done to kind of distance the royal family from Prince Andrew?
I simply don't know. I know that Fergie's incredibly loyal to her husband and the girls are very, very loyal to their father. But of course, they're embarrassed. And I think that the king worries about it, but I don't think the king has a great deal of time, to worry about it. He knows that Andrew will keep Royal Lodge. That is what the Queen wanted to happen. I mean, I think the Queen, before she died, was very, very clear. I don't know this. I'm imagining this. Very clear to her eldest son and heir that he had to look after Andrew because she knew that nobody else apart from Fergie would. So he needed to be protected. But exactly what Charles does, I don't know, sent him to Transylvania, where Charles has a very nice house.
What have the Transylvanians done to deserve that, you might ask?
Yeah, and leave him there. I mean, he should, why doesn't he, go and farm in the north of Scotland? Just something to get him out of this potential public eye and ridicule. It must be dreadful for him.
And Royal Lodge, you've just said he's probably going to stay there in perpetuity, but we know it has. Is it 36 rooms or is it 36 bedrooms? I mean, whichever it is.
It hasn't got 36 bedrooms.
36 rooms. And
30, it's got 30 rooms, I think.
And it's Prince Andrew and Fergie, which mystifies everyone because they are divorced, living there, waited on by a retinue of staff, because you need a retinue of staff to maintain 36 rooms in pristine condition. Why do you think he's so wedded to, living in a place that large? Most people, even Prince and Princess Michael of Kent, downsized, didn't they, at some point? Why do you think he wants to incur the wrath and stay there when he could perfectly well be comfortable in the place that Meghan and Harry vacated?
I'm not a psychotherapist, but I think he very much feels it's his right. He was born in a palace. He's lived in a palace most of his life. I think he feels it's his right, and he paid for the lease on this property, and his mother wanted him to live there, and his mother was the Queen. I just think that he feels it's his right to live in that kind of grandeur, whether he can pay for it or not, which again is incredibly stupid and short-sighted and quite worrying.
I mean, the whole thing does seem to be somewhat out of control, particularly now with the Chinese connection and the spying connection and the kind of dubious and dodgy decisions and revisions and money that suddenly became available and nobody was really quite sure where it came from. It seems murkier and murkier with each fresh revelation, doesn't it, really?
It certainly does. And what's he doing? He sits, apparently, his friends have more or less deserted him. Not all of them, obviously. There's always some that are loyal. But he sits, watching, television on a giant screen. And the only thing he really seems to do and enjoy is going riding around the Windsor estate. And going shooting. He does shoot with his brother. He still does that. I mean, the royals look after him when it's very private. And they do include him. But obviously not always. Like at Christmas, they didn't include him because that just would have been crazy. And it's damaging to the monarchy. So I don't know.
I just wonder whether these words, will play more soon. When he said to Emily Maitlis, really his friend was Ghislaine Maxwell, it wasn't really Jeffrey Epstein, that he was pictured with him because he had to personally go to see him to tell him he was not going to see him, which didn't seem to make any sense at all to anyone listening whatsoever. And he couldn't stay in any kind of royal accommodation. He had to go and stay with him, God knows why. If you were going to stay there, to say that you were never going to stay there again, what does that even mean? No one understood it. But we'll play more soon sounds so co-conspiratorial, and it sounds as if you have played previously, because you play more, and playing Jeffrey Epstein style, we know what that meant, and it wasn't snakes and ladders, and it wasn't Snap or Ludo, was it? So we know what it was.
Well, and it wasn't even golf.
No, it wasn't even golf. So this just looks more, I think, incriminating. Doesn't matter what I think, I'm not the judge, but it just seems to me to be more incriminating really than lots of other things that we knew before, doesn't it? Do you think it might be something that changes the pattern of what happens next? Is it serious enough to do that?
Well, I think what Andrew really wanted, he wanted to fight that court case with Giuffre, but it was the wrong moment. It was the wrong moment for his mother, and she said, no, you can't do this. It's going to overshadow everything that I'm doing at this moment. But I will pay you to pay her off. But it's always going to be there that Andrew wanted to prove his innocence. And obviously his family, well, most of them, I'm sure, believe he is innocent. So, but I just wish he wouldn't say. I quite agree with you about let's play more later. It is a very incriminating remark from a grown man. And as you said, it's not golf or ping pong or anything else.
No.
And I think that Andrew has sort of got by with going to the private island, being photographed. He's sort of skidded through until this Giuffre case. And I think he thinks that he can still get by, but I don't think he can anymore. And I don't know what will happen about this. I don't know what could happen.
Ingrid, thank you very much indeed. Always lovely to see you. Ingrid Seward, their editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, royal biographer, about the story about Prince Andrew. Andrew told Epstein, we'll play more soon.